I've built a reputation on control. At 38, I run a $12 billion empire spanning real estate, technology, and private equity. I negotiate with presidents and CEOs. I've never lost my temper in a boardroom. Never made a decision based on emotion instead of strategy. But the moment I saw Bartholomew Thorne's foot connect with Clara's pregnant belly, every ounce of that control evaporated. I caught his ankle mid-swing for the second blow, my fingers clamping down with enough force that I felt something crack. Maybe his bone, maybe my restraint. Touch her again, I heard myself say, my voice quiet and deadly, and I will end you. The Palm Beach Country Club ballroom erupted into chaos around us, but I barely registered it. My entire world had narrowed to the woman curled on the marble floor, blood seeping through her Valentino gown, and the monster standing over her. The monster I should have destroyed years ago. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm taking you inside a story that's personal, brutal, and about what happens when someone with real power decides enough is enough. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. And if you haven't subscribed, do it now because this is my story, Elias van der Zee's story, and I'm going to show you exactly how I dismantled a millionaire who thought he was untouchable. Now let me take you back to 60 seconds before my world caught fire. I'd come to the charity gala out of obligation, not interest. The Van der Zee name has been synonymous with Palm Beach society for 3 generations. My presence at events like this isn't optional. It's expected. I shake the right hands, write the appropriate checks, and leave as quickly as protocol allows. I was planning my exit when I saw her. Clara Hartley. Except she wasn't Clara Hartley anymore. She was Clara Thorne now, married for 2 years to the man I despised more than anyone on earth. She looked different than I remembered. Thinner, more fragile. The vibrant woman who'd once debated philosophy with me over wine and laughed at my terrible jokes had been replaced by someone who moved like she was trying not to be noticed. I'd loved Clara once. 5 years ago, before my father's death had consumed me, before building Van der Zee Industries into what it is today had become my only focus. I'd loved her quietly, unsuccessfully, and had lost her to my own ambition and inability to express emotions like a normal human being. By the time I'd realized what I'd lost, she was engaged to Bartholomew Thorne. I told myself it was for the best, that she deserved someone who could give her attention I was too busy to provide. That Bartholomew, for all his flaws, would at least prioritize her in ways I'd failed to. I'd been catastrophically wrong. Over the past 2 years, I'd watched from a distance as Clara had slowly disappeared. Fewer public appearances, quieter voice, a brightness dimming in real time. I'd suspected abuse. Had hired investigators who'd found nothing concrete. Bartholomew was too careful for bruises where people could see them. But my gut had screamed that something was wrong. Tonight confirmed it. I was near the corridor when I heard the slap. The sound was distinctive, unmistakable. I'd heard it before, growing up in a house where my father had occasionally reminded my mother who held the power. I moved without thinking, muscle memory from a childhood spent positioning myself between violence and its victim. What I found in that hallway made my blood turn to ice. Clara on the ground, Bartholomew standing over her. His face twisted with rage I recognized too well, and her hand pressed protectively to her stomach. She was pregnant. The realization hit me the same moment Bartholomew's fist did. I watched him drive his knuckles into her belly, watched her crumple, watched her curl around the baby like she could protect it with willpower alone. I should have reached them faster, should have stopped that first blow. But I was too late for that. What I wasn't too late for was the second stomp, that one I caught, my hand closing around his ankle like a vice. Every investment in martial arts training and boxing paying off in this single moment. Our eyes met, and I saw Bartholomew recognize exactly how much danger he was in. Not physical danger, though God knows I wanted to throw him through the marble wall. But something worse. Something he should have been afraid of years ago. Economic annihilation. Van der Zee. He tried to pull his leg free, couldn't. This is a private matter between husband and wife. Private. As if assault in a public hallway with witnesses qualified as private. There's nothing private about assault in a public hallway, I said, releasing him only because security was arriving and I needed witnesses, not a battery charge. And nothing about what you just did qualifies as a marital dispute. I positioned myself between him and Clara, my body a wall he'd have to go through to reach her again. Someone call an ambulance. I ordered the security guards who looked torn between restraining me or him. Mrs. Thorne needs medical attention. My wife is fine, Bartholomew had the audacity to say. She's prone to dramatics. Everyone knows that. I looked down at Clara, at the blood spreading across marble, at her hands pressed to her stomach, at her face gray with pain and terror, and I made a decision that would change all of our lives. I knelt beside her, forcing my voice gentle when everything in me wanted to roar. Clara, can you hear me? Help is coming. Her eyes found mine and I saw recognition, saw hope, saw the woman I'd loved looking at me like I was salvation. The baby, she gasped. Please, save the baby. The baby. My baby could have been in another timeline, in a world where I'd been brave enough to tell her I loved her before Bartholomew had swept in with his charm and lies. I stood, turned to face Bartholomew, and felt something fundamental shift inside me. The control I'd built my reputation on didn't disappear. It crystallized into something far more dangerous. Calculated rage. You knew she was pregnant, I said, watching the truth play across his face. My wife's medical status is none of your business. You stomped on a pregnant woman's belly, in front of witnesses, in this club. I pulled out my phone, my fingers steady even as my mind cataloged everything I was about to destroy. You just ended your life, Thorne. You're too stupid to realize it yet, but you're done. He actually laughed. Is that a threat? From the great Elias van der Zee? What are you going to do? Outbid me at an auction. Something far worse. I called Marcus Chen, my head of security and closest friend. I need emergency medical at the country club. Pregnant woman, assault victim, possible miscarriage. Yes, immediately. And Marcus? Call my attorneys. All of them. I don't care what they're doing. Conference call in 1 hour. I hung up, looked at Bartholomew with the same expression I wore when I demolished competitors in boardrooms. I'm going to dismantle everything you've built, I told him conversationally. Your business, your reputation, your freedom, your future. I'm going to do it legally, publicly, and thoroughly. And when I'm done, you'll wish I'd just hit you back. I meant every word. Bartholomew Thorne had built his modest empire on corruption, intimidation, and the carefully cultivated image of respectability. He sat on charity boards, donated to the right causes, played golf with city officials. But I knew things about him that would make those officials run screaming. I'd been collecting information for years, initially as competitive intelligence, now as ammunition, and I was about to deploy every single weapon in my arsenal. The paramedics arrived. I stepped aside but stayed close, watching them stabilize Clara, check her vitals, prepare to transport. Sir, are you family? One of them asked me. No, I said, but I'm all she has right now. Clara's hand found mine, gripped it weakly. Elias, she whispered, don't leave me. I won't, I promised. I'm not leaving you. Again. I'd left her once, through neglect and cowardice and failure to fight for what mattered. I'd lost her to a monster because I'd been too focused on spreadsheets and acquisitions to see what was right in front of me. Never again. As they loaded Clara onto the stretcher, I turned back to Bartholomew one final time. This isn't over, he hissed, finally understanding he'd miscalculated. You're right, I agreed. It's just beginning, and you're going to lose everything. I saw the moment it hit him, the realization that he'd just assaulted his pregnant wife in front of 3 board members, 2 city council members, and a dozen Palm Beach socialites with their phones out recording everything. In this world, reputation is currency, and Bartholomew had just bankrupted himself. I followed the stretcher to the ambulance, my mind already calculating moves and countermoves. By morning, I'd have teams working on 7 different fronts: legal, financial, social, Political. Bartholomew thought he was a millionaire with power. He was about to learn the difference between a million and a billion wasn't just zeros on a balance sheet. It was the ability to wage total war and guarantee victory. In the ambulance, Clara's eyes found mine again. Why are you helping me? Because I loved you. Because I failed you once. Because I'm going to spend the rest of my life making up for the time I wasted. But what I said was simpler. Because it's the right thing to do. She squeezed my hand, her grip weak but determined. The baby is going to be fine, I told her, not knowing if it was true but needing her to believe it. You're both going to be fine, I promise. I don't make promises I can't keep. And I was about to keep this one by destroying the man who'd threatened them both.
Mijn name is Elias van der Zee.
And I was going to teach Bartholomew Thorne what happens when you hurt someone I care about. The fall was going to be biblical, and I was going to enjoy every second of it. Like and subscribe if you haven't. The emergency room at Palm Beach Memorial smelled like antiseptic and fear. I sat in a private waiting room I'd secured with a phone call and a donation large enough that the hospital administrator personally showed me to it. Money talks, but the Van der Zee name opens doors money alone can't touch. Clara had been in surgery for 43 minutes. Emergency procedure to save the baby. The doctors had used words like placental abruption, internal bleeding, critical condition. I'd stood there nodding like I understood while my mind screamed that this was my fault for not acting sooner. Marcus Chun arrived 12 minutes after I called him, bringing my lead attorney Catherine Morrison and my crisis management specialist David Shaw. The three of them had worked with me for over a decade, knew me well enough to read the fury I was barely containing. Talk to me, Marcus said, sitting across from me in the waiting room. He was 42, former Navy SEAL, built like someone who could break bones without trying. I'd hired him 8 years ago after an attempted kidnapping made me realize I needed more than standard security. He'd become something closer to a brother. Bartholomew Thorne assaulted his pregnant wife in the country club hallway. Multiple witnesses. I intervened. She's in surgery now. I kept my voice level clinical. I want him destroyed. Completely. Legally. I want every aspect of his life examined and dismantled. Catherine pulled out her tablet, already taking notes. She was 56, brilliant, with a reputation for winning cases other lawyers wouldn't touch. Criminal charges? Assault and battery at minimum. Attempted murder if the district attorney has any spine. I have contact information for at least 8 witnesses, including Councilman Peterson and board member Elizabeth Hartley. Elizabeth Hartley is Clara's mother, Catherine observed. I'd forgotten that detail. Clara's mother had been there, had watched her son-in-law attack her daughter. The implications made my stomach turn. We need medical documentation, Catherine continued. Complete records, photographs of injuries, testimony from the surgical team. Already arranged, I said. I've authorized the hospital to share all information with you. Patient consent will be obtained as soon as Clara is conscious and able to sign. David leaned forward, his expression troubled. He specialized in reputation management, controlling narratives, spinning disasters into opportunities. Elias, I need to understand something. What's your relationship with Clara Thorne? The media is going to ask. They're probably already running stories about the assault. If there's any personal history between you two, I need to know now. I was quiet for a long moment, deciding how much to reveal. We dated 5 years ago, I said finally, before Bartholomew entered the picture. It ended because I was an idiot who prioritized work over everything else. She moved on. I didn't. Marcus raised an eyebrow. You've been carrying a torch for 5 years? I've been regretting my choices for 5 years. There's a difference. I stood, paced to the window overlooking the parking lot. Clara was the best thing that ever happened to me, and I was too blind to see it until she was gone. Then Bartholomew swept in with his charm offensive, and by the time I realized what I'd lost, they were engaged. Did you try to stop the wedding? Catherine asked. No. I told myself she deserved better than a man who'd choose a business meeting over her birthday dinner, who'd cancel weekend plans because a deal was closing. who couldn't say, "I love you," even when it was obvious I did. The admission tasted bitter. I thought Bartholomew would treat her better, would give her the attention I'd failed to provide. Clearly that didn't work out, David muttered. No, it didn't. I turned back to face them. I've been watching from a distance for 2 years, seeing her withdraw, seeing the light dim. I suspected abuse but couldn't prove it. Bartholomew is too careful, too controlled in public. Until tonight, Marcus said. Until tonight, when something made him snap in front of the exact wrong audience. I pulled out my phone, showed them the text I'd already received from 3 different witnesses offering to provide statements. He's finished in Palm Beach society. The question is how much further we can push his destruction. Catherine's fingers flew across her tablet. I'm pulling up everything we have on Bartholomew Thorne. His business dealings, financials, legal history. I have more, I admitted. I've been investigating him for 18 months. Initially as competitive intelligence. Then as insurance in case I ever needed leverage. All 3 of them looked at me with varying degrees of surprise. You've been investigating your ex-girlfriend's husband for 1.5 years? Marcus said slowly. That's either really smart or really concerning. It's both. And she's not my ex-girlfriend. She was never officially my girlfriend because I was too emotionally stunted to actually define the relationship. I pulled up the encrypted files on my phone, sent them to Catherine. Everything you need is there. Tax irregularities, questionable business partnerships, bribes to city officials for zoning approvals, affairs with at least 3 different women. It's all documented. David whistled low. You've been sitting on this for 18 months? I was waiting for the right moment, waiting for Bartholomew to make a mistake big enough that destroying him would look like justice instead of a jealous ex settling scores. I met their eyes. Tonight, he gave me that moment. The door opened, and a surgeon in blue scrubs entered, pulling off her cap. Dr. Sarah Bennett, according to her name tag. She looked exhausted. I was on my feet instantly. How is she? Mrs. Thorne is stable. We were able to stop the bleeding and repair the damage. The baby's heartbeat is strong. Dr. Bennett's expression was cautiously optimistic. She's incredibly lucky. A few more minutes of delay, and we would have lost them both. The relief hit me like a physical force. I had to sit down. Can I see her? I asked when I could speak again. She's in recovery, still sedated. But she's been asking for you. Dr. Bennett studied me. Are you family, Mr. Van der Zee? No. But I'm the person who got her here. The person who's going to make sure she's safe going forward. And her husband? Is the person who put her here. My voice went cold. He's not to be allowed anywhere near her room. I'll arrange private security to ensure that. Dr. Bennett nodded slowly. I suspected abuse when I saw the pattern of injuries. This wasn't the first time she's been hurt. No, I said quietly. Just the first time it was public enough that he couldn't hide it. I've documented everything. Photographs, detailed notes, medical history. She handed me a card. My statement is available for any legal proceedings. What he did to her is criminal. After Dr. Bennett left, Catherine looked at me with something like respect. You really care about her. More than I've cared about anything in a very long time. I stood, straightened my tie, became the billionaire businessman they were used to seeing. Now let's talk strategy. I want Bartholomew Thorne in handcuffs by morning. I want his business accounts frozen. I want every board he sits on to remove him. I want his country club membership revoked. I want him unemployable, unmarriageable, and utterly ruined. That's a tall order, David said, even with the assault charges. We have witnesses. We have medical evidence. We have my investigation files showing a pattern of corruption. I pulled up my contacts, started texting. And I have relationships with every person who matters in this city. By dawn, Bartholomew's phone is going to be ringing with people distancing themselves from him. Marcus grinned. It wasn't a nice expression. You're going nuclear. I'm going biblical. I corrected. There's a difference. I spent the next hour in that waiting room, orchestrating Bartholomew's destruction with the same precision I brought to corporate acquisitions. Phone calls to the district attorney, a personal friend. Texts to board members of organizations where Bartholomew held positions. Emails to journalists I trusted with exclusive information about the assault and the investigation files. By the time a nurse came to tell me Clara was awake, I'd set in motion events that would dismantle Bartholomew's life piece by methodical piece. Clara's room was private, spacious, filled with equipment monitoring her vitals. She looked impossibly small in the hospital bed, pale against white sheets, one hand resting protectively on her belly. Her eyes opened when I entered, and the relief in them nearly broke me. "Elias," she whispered, "the baby is fine. You're both fine. Dr. Bennett said you were incredibly lucky." I sat in the chair beside her bed, taking her hand carefully. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck named Bartholomew." She tried to smile, failed. "You saved us. Both of us. I should have done it sooner. Should have gotten you out of that marriage months ago. You didn't know. I suspected. I should have acted on suspicion instead of waiting for proof." I squeezed her hand gently. "I'm not making that mistake again." She was quiet for a moment, studying my face. "Why are you doing this? We haven't spoken in 5 years, Elias. You don't owe me anything." This was the moment. The chance to tell her the truth I'd been too cowardly to speak 5 years ago. "I'm doing this because I loved you," I said simply. "Because I love you. Because I've never stopped loving you. And watching you marry someone else was my punishment for being too stupid to tell you when it mattered." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "Elias, you don't have to say anything. You're married. You're pregnant with another man's child. You're recovering from assault. This is the worst possible timing for a confession." I brought her hand to my lips, kissed it gently. "But I need you to know that whatever happens next, you're not alone. You have resources, protection, someone who will fight for you without expecting anything in return." "What if I want to give you something in return?" she whispered. "Then we'll talk about that when you're healed. When Bartholomew is in prison where he belongs. When you've had time to process trauma and figure out what you actually want instead of what you need in a crisis." I met her eyes. "I'm not going anywhere, Clara. Take all the time you need." A knock interrupted us. Marcus poked his head in. "Sorry to interrupt, but you need to see this." He handed me his phone, showing a news alert. "Breaking: Millionaire Bartholomew Thorne arrested for assault after country club incident." I showed it to Clara, watched relief flood her features. "He's going to try to get out on bail," she said. "Let him try." I pulled out my own phone, made another call. "Judge Morrison?"
It's Elias van der Zee.
"I need a favor regarding a bail hearing tomorrow morning." Because I wasn't just fighting Bartholomew in the court of public opinion. I was fighting him everywhere that mattered. And I was going to win. The bail hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m. the next morning. I arrived at the courthouse at 8:30, dressed in a Tom Ford suit that cost more than most people's monthly salary, flanked by Catherine and a legal team that made defense attorneys nervous. The media circus outside was exactly what I'd anticipated. News vans, reporters, cameras all focused on the story that had dominated Palm Beach headlines for the past 18 hours. Millionaire arrested after brutal assault on pregnant wife at country club. The video had leaked, of course. Security footage from the country club showing Bartholomew striking Clara, her falling, his foot raised for that stomp. It had gone viral within hours. 20 million views and counting. The court of public opinion had already convicted him. Now I just needed the actual court to do the same. "Mr.
Van der Zee.
A reporter shoved a microphone in my face. "What's your relationship with Clara Thorne? Are the rumors true that you're romantically involved?" "Mrs. Thorne is a friend who needed help," I said calmly. "I provided that help. Anyone who witnessed what happened would have done the same." "Is it true you're paying for her legal representation?" "I'm ensuring she has access to the best possible legal counsel." "Yes." Bartholomew Thorne's attorney is claiming you orchestrated this entire situation to damage his client's reputation. How do you respond? I stopped, looked directly at the camera, and let every ounce of my contempt show. I respond that Bartholomew Thorne damaged his own reputation when he assaulted his pregnant wife in front of witnesses. I simply ensured there would be consequences. Inside the courthouse, the atmosphere was tense. Bartholomew sat at the defense table in an expensive suit, looking haggard but defiant. His attorney, Mitchell Price, was one of the best criminal defense lawyers in Florida. I'd anticipated that. What I hadn't anticipated was seeing Clara's mother, Elizabeth Hartley, sitting on Bartholomew's side of the courtroom. My blood went cold. Catherine noticed my reaction. "What's wrong?" "Clara's mother is supporting him," I said quietly. "She witnessed the assault and she's still supporting him." "Money or fear?" Marcus asked from behind me. "Probably both." The judge entered. The Honorable Patricia Chun, 58, no nonsense, with a reputation for being tough on domestic violence cases. I'd known her father, had made a substantial donation to her re-election campaign last year. Not bribery, just strategic relationship building. The matter before the court is bail for Mr. Bartholomew Thorne, charged with aggravated assault on a pregnant woman, and attempted murder. Judge Chun began. "Mr. Price, your argument?" Mitchell Price stood, smooth and confident. "Your Honor, my client is a respected businessman with deep ties to the community. He's never been arrested before. He poses no flight risk. The charges against him are based on a misunderstanding that has been blown out of proportion by media sensationalism and the involvement of his business rival, Mr. Elias van der Zee." I kept my expression neutral, but Catherine's pen stopped moving on her notepad. "Furthermore," Price continued, "we have reason to believe that Mrs. Thorne's injuries were exaggerated, possibly self-inflicted, as part of a scheme to extort money from my client. We have testimony from Mrs. Thorne's own mother suggesting that Clara has a history of emotional instability and attention-seeking behavior." The courtroom murmured. I felt rage building in my chest like a living thing. Elizabeth Hartley was going to testify against her own daughter, was going to claim Clara had hurt herself. The prosecutor, Amanda Rodriguez, stood immediately. "Your Honor, that's an outrageous accusation with no basis in fact. We have medical testimony from Dr. Sarah Bennett documenting severe internal injuries consistent with blunt force trauma. We have video evidence showing Mr. Thorne striking Mrs. Thorne and stomping on her abdomen. And we have 8 witnesses who saw the assault happen." "The video is inconclusive," Price argued. "My client was attempting to help his wife after she fell. The angle makes it appear. The angle shows exactly what happened," I heard myself say. Everyone turned to look at me. Judge Chun raised an eyebrow. "Mr. van der Zee, you're not a party to this proceeding." "I'm a witness, Your Honor. I was the one who physically stopped Mr. Thorne from delivering a second blow to his wife's abdomen. There was nothing inconclusive about what I saw." Price's expression hardened. "Your Honor, Mr. van der Zee's testimony is compromised by his personal relationship with Mrs. Thorne. He has a vested interest in seeing my client imprisoned." "My interest is in seeing justice served," I said coldly. "Something that won't happen if Mr. Thorne is released on bail and given the opportunity to intimidate witnesses or harm his wife further." "Mr. van der Zee," Judge Chun said firmly, "I appreciate your passion, but this is not the time for witness testimony. Please take your seat." I sat, but my mind was already calculating next moves. Judge Chun reviewed the documents in front of her. Bail is set at $5 million. Mr. Thorne will surrender his passport and submit to electronic monitoring. He is prohibited from any contact with the victim, Clara Thorne, or any witnesses in this case. Violation of these terms will result in immediate incarceration. $5 million. Bartholomew could make that bail. Would make it within hours. As I'd expected. Outside the courtroom, I pulled Marcus aside. "I want 24-hour surveillance on Bartholomew the moment he makes bail. I want to know everywhere he goes, everyone he talks to, every move he makes." "Already arranged," Marcus said. I've got 4 teams ready to rotate. Catherine appeared at my elbow. We need to talk about Elizabeth Hartley. If she testifies that Clara has a history of instability, it could damage the case. Then we need to find out why she's lying for Bartholomew. I pulled out my phone, sent a text to my lead investigator. Money trail. I want to know if Bartholomew has any financial leverage over Elizabeth Hartley. Loans, investments, anything. My phone buzzed 30 seconds later. A text from the hospital. Mrs. Thorne is asking for you. I need to get back to Clara, I told them. Keep me updated on everything. I arrived at the hospital to find Clara sitting up in bed, looking stronger than yesterday but devastated. My mother, she said when I entered. She's going to testify for him. Against me. I know. I was at the hearing. I sat beside her bed, took her hand. Clara, I need you to tell me everything about your relationship with your mother. Is Bartholomew blackmailing her? Does he have leverage? Money, Clara said bitterly. He loaned her $300,000 2 years ago when her business was failing. She signed a promissory note. If she testifies against him, he'll call in the loan and she'll lose everything. So he's bought her testimony. He's bought her loyalty. She's always valued money over everything else. Over me. Clara's voice cracked. She watched him hurt me, watched him stomp on her grandchild. And she's still choosing him. I felt something crack inside my chest. The same something that had cracked when my own mother had chosen my father's money over her own safety. Over me. I'm going to pay off that loan, I said. Today. Whatever the amount, I'll wire it directly. Remove his leverage. Elias, you can't just... I can and I will. Your mother made a choice based on financial fear. Let's remove the fear and see what choice she makes then. Clara looked at me with tears streaming down her face. Why are you doing all this? The lawyers, the protection, the money. You don't owe me anything. I owe you 5 years of my life that I wasted being a coward, I said quietly. I owe you the protection I should have provided before it came to this. And Clara, I need you to understand something. This isn't charity. This isn't obligation. This is love. We barely know each other anymore. We're different people than we were 5 years ago. Then let me get to know who you are now. Let me prove that I'm different too, that I learned from my mistakes. I squeezed her hand gently, but only if you want that. If you want me to back off, give you space, just provide resources without the personal involvement, I will. You're healing, your choice. She was quiet for a long moment, studying my face. I loved you 5 years ago, she said finally. Loved you so much it hurt when you chose work over me every single time. When you couldn't say the words I needed to hear. When you let me walk away without fighting for me. The words hit like bullets, accurate and deserved. I know, I said, and I'm sorrier than I can express. But I married Bartholomew on the rebound. Married him because he said everything you couldn't. Because he pursued me when you let me go. Because I was young and stupid and thought passion meant love. She wiped her eyes. And I've spent 2 years paying for that mistake with bruises and fear and losing myself piece by piece. You're not paying for anything anymore, I told her. That's over now. Is it? Because Bartholomew is about to make bail. He's gonna come after me with everything he has. He'll use my mother against me. He'll drag my name through the mud. He'll claim I'm a liar and a cheat and that the baby isn't even his. The baby isn't his, I said carefully. Is it? Clara went very still. What makes you say that? The timeline. The way you said 16 weeks at the country club. The way Bartholomew reacted when he realized you were pregnant. Like it was a betrayal instead of news. I met her eyes. Clara? Whose baby is it? She looked away, fresh tears falling. I don't know. There's a chance it's Bartholomew's. But there's also a chance it's... She took a shaky breath. 6 months ago, I ran into you at that literacy fundraiser. We talked for 3 hours. You walked me to my car. And for the first time in a year, I felt like myself again. I remembered that night. Remembered the connection I'd felt, the old spark reigniting. Remembered wanting to kiss her and stopping myself because she was married. I went home that night and Bartholomew was drunk, Clara continued, angry about something from work. He forced himself on me. It wasn't the first time, but that night was different because I just remembered what tenderness felt like, what being treated with respect felt like. My hands clenched into fists. Did you report it? To who? The police? He's my husband. Marital rape isn't taken seriously, especially when the husband is wealthy. She looked at me, but 2 weeks later I met someone, a photographer at another event. He was kind, gentle. We talked, and then we met for coffee, and then she closed her eyes. I had an affair, Elias. One night, one time, because I needed to feel human again. That's not an affair, I said firmly. That's survival. The law won't see it that way. Bartholomew's lawyer will paint me as an adulteress. Will claim the baby isn't his and use that to destroy my credibility. Can we do a paternity test? Not until the baby is born. Prenatal testing is too risky given the trauma I just experienced. She looked at her stomach. So for the next 5 months, we won't know. I processed this information, running through legal implications and strategic responses. It doesn't matter, I said finally. What? Whether the baby is Bartholomew's or not, it doesn't change the facts of the assault. Doesn't change the medical evidence. Doesn't change that he stomped on a pregnant woman's belly. I leaned forward. He's going to try to use this to hurt you. We're going to be prepared. My phone buzzed. A text from my investigator. You need to see this. Now, I have to make a call, I told Clara. I'll be right back. In the hallway, I called my investigator, Nathan Torres. What did you find? Bartholomew Thorne is broke, Nathan said without preamble. Like, completely broke. The millionaire image is a facade. He's got 17 million. In debt, creditors circling, and his assets are mortgaged to the breaking point. The 5 million bail, he can't make it. Then how is he planning to get out? That's the interesting part. Elizabeth Hartley just wired $5 million to his bail bondsman. She liquidated her entire retirement account to post his bail. I leaned against the wall processing this. She's that committed to protecting him? Or that afraid of him? But there's more. I pulled financial records going back 5 years. Bartholomew has been systematically draining Clara's trust fund. She inherited $2 million from her grandmother. It's gone. All of it. Transferred to Bartholomew's accounts and used to cover his debts. That's financial abuse. Potentially theft if he forged signatures. He definitely forged signatures. I have the documents. Clara never authorized those transfers. A plan crystallized in my mind, elegant and brutal. Send me everything, every document, every transfer, every piece of evidence. I looked back toward Clara's hospital room. We're going to destroy him financially before the criminal trial even starts. Because Bartholomew Thorne had made a critical mistake. He'd underestimated me. He thought I was fighting with emotion, with jealousy, with the resources of a jilted lover. He had no idea I was fighting with the precision of a man who'd built an empire by knowing exactly when and how to strike. The inciting incident wasn't the assault at the country club. It was the moment I decided to use every weapon in my arsenal to ensure he never hurt anyone again. And as I walked back into Clara's room, seeing her fragile but fighting, protecting her baby with a fierceness that made my heart ache, I knew exactly what I was fighting for. Not revenge. Redemption. And I was going to win. Bartholomew made bail at 3 p.m. that afternoon, walking out of jail with a smug smile that made me want to put him right back behind bars. I watched the footage from Marcus's surveillance team, studying the way Bartholomew straightened his tie, checked his reflection in a car window, adjusted his expression from rage to confidence before facing the cameras. He was good at masks. I give him that, but I was better at ripping them off. He's heading to his attorney's office, Marcus reported from the command center I'd set up in my home office. 4 monitors showed different angles of Bartholomew's movements, his car, the people he interacted with. 3 of his business partners have already called him. 2 hung up when he answered. The rats are fleeing the ship, I observed. Good. Accelerate it. I'd spent the past 6 hours executing a strategy I'd been planning for months. Every business relationship Bartholomew had, I had a better one. Every board seat he occupied, I knew 3 members who owed me favors. Every investment he'd made, within 48 hours. Do both. I want him fighting legal battles on every front. I pulled up the documents on my screen, studying the forged signatures. Sloppy work. Arrogant work. The signature of a man who thought he'd never be caught. What about Elizabeth Hartley? I contacted her attorney. Made it very clear that testifying falsely in a criminal proceeding is perjury. Also mentioned that if she proceeds, we'll be forced to reveal that Bartholomew has been bribing her with loan forgiveness. Catherine paused. She requested a meeting with you today. She says it's urgent. I checked my watch. 4:30 p.m. Set it for 6. My office. And Catherine? I want you there. Whatever she's selling, I want a witness. After hanging up, I returned to Clara's hospital room. She was asleep, her hand resting on her belly, her face finally peaceful. The doctor said she could go home tomorrow if there were no complications. Home. Except she didn't have one anymore. The house she'd shared with Bartholomew wasn't safe. Her mother's house wasn't an option. She had nowhere to go, which was why I'd already made arrangements. I had a guest house on my estate, completely separate from the main residence. 3 bedrooms, full kitchen, private entrance. I'd had it cleaned and stocked with everything she might need. Had hired a private nurse to check on her twice daily. Had installed additional security measures. All without asking her permission, which I knew was problematic. But I'd watched her struggle with accepting help for the past 2 days. Would rather have her angry at me for overstepping than vulnerable somewhere I couldn't protect her. I was learning that love wasn't just about grand gestures. It was about the small protections. The unglamorous work of ensuring someone had what they needed before they had to ask. My mother had taught me that, in the brief moments when my father's control had slipped and she'd been able to show me what real love looked like. Clara's eyes opened, found me sitting in the chair beside her bed. How long have you been here? She asked, her voice still rough from sleep. 20 minutes. You needed rest. I poured her water from the pitcher on the bedside table, handed it to her. How are you feeling? Sore, tired, terrified. She sipped the water. Bartholomew made bail. I know. He's being watched. 24-hour surveillance. He won't get within 100 yards of you without me knowing about it. He's going to retaliate, Elias. That's what he does when he feels cornered. He destroys things. Let him try. I leaned forward. Clara, I need to tell you something. While you were sleeping, my investigators found evidence that Bartholomew embezzled over $2 million from your trust fund. Money your grandmother left you. He forged your signature on transfer documents and used the funds to cover his debts. Her face went white. My grandmother's money? That was supposed to be for my future. For my children's education. It's recoverable. We're filing charges. But I need you to understand what this means. Bartholomew is broke. Completely broke. The millionaire image is a facade. He's been living on credit and stolen money for years. So all of it was a lie, she said quietly. The success, the wealth, everything, everything. I took her hand, which makes him more dangerous now than ever. A desperate man with nothing to lose is unpredictable. He'll come after me. He'll try to take the baby. He'll try. He'll fail. I squeezed her hand gently. I've arranged for you to stay in my guest house when you're discharged tomorrow. Completely separate residence. Your own space. Private security. Medical care. Everything you need. Elias, I can't accept. Yes, you can. Because the alternative is a hotel where you're vulnerable, or your mother's house where you're clearly not safe, or a shelter where resources are stretched thin. I met her eyes. I have the space. I have the security. I have the resources. Let me use them to keep you safe while you heal. She was quiet for a long moment. You're asking me to move into your property, to accept your protection, your money, your help. That's a lot of debt to owe someone. You don't owe me anything. This isn't a transaction. I chose my next words carefully. 5 years ago, I failed you by being emotionally unavailable, by choosing work over the woman I loved. I can't change that, but I can choose differently now. I can show up. I can protect you. I can be the man I should have been then. What if I don't want to be your redemption arc? Her voice was sharp, challenging. What if I'm too broken to be the project that fixes your guilt? The words hit hard because they were fair. Then tell me to back off and I will, I said. Tell me what you need. Space. Distance? Just financial support without the personal involvement? I'll give you whatever you ask for. But Clara, you're not a project. You're the woman I love. And love isn't about fixing someone. It's about standing beside them while they fix themselves. She looked away, tears sliding down her cheeks. I don't know how to do this. How to accept help. How to trust someone after Bartholomew. How to believe this isn't just another cage with prettier bars. By taking it one day at a time. By setting boundaries when you need them. By telling me when I'm overstepping. I wiped her tears gently with my thumb. I'm not perfect, Clara. I'm going to make mistakes. But I'm not Bartholomew. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to control you. I'm just going to love you and let you decide what that means. Before she could respond, my phone rang. Catherine. Elizabeth Hartley is here early, she said. And Elias? She brought Bartholomew with her. My blood went cold. What? They're in the lobby together. She says they both need to speak with you. Security is asking if they should escort them out. I looked at Clara, saw the fear flash across her face. Tell security to let Elizabeth up. Bartholomew stays in the lobby with 2 guards watching him. If he tries anything, call the police. I stood, kissed Clara's forehead. I need to handle this. Will you be okay for 30 minutes? What does my mother want? I don't know, but I'm about to find out. I arrived at my office building 20 minutes later, taking the private elevator to the top floor where Vander Zee Industries occupied an entire level. The view from my office overlooked Palm Beach, the ocean stretching endlessly beyond glass windows. Elizabeth Hartley sat in my reception area, looking older than the last time I'd seen her. Thinner, more fragile. The woman who'd always reminded me of old money and careful breeding looked diminished somehow. Catherine stood guard nearby, her expression unreadable. Mrs. Hartley, I said coolly. This is unexpected. Thank you for seeing me. Elizabeth stood, wringing her hands. I know you must hate me right now. Hate is too strong a word. Disappointed, confused, disgusted that a mother would choose money over her daughter's safety. I gestured to my office. You have 15 minutes. Inside my office, Elizabeth sat across from my desk, Catherine positioned near the door. I made a terrible mistake, Elizabeth began. Supporting Bartholomew, planning to testify for him. I let fear override everything else. Fear of losing money he loaned you, I said flatly. Fear of losing everything. My home, my business, my reputation. She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. But I watched that video, watched him hurt my daughter, watched him try to kill my grandchild. And I realized money isn't worth my soul. Convenient realization now that I've offered to pay off your debt. I didn't know about that offer until an hour ago when my attorney told me. This decision wasn't about your money, Mr. Vander Zee. It was about watching my daughter almost die and realizing I've become the kind of person who would excuse that for financial gain. I studied her, looking for deception, finding only exhaustion and shame. Why is Bartholomew downstairs? I asked. Because he doesn't know I'm here to betray him. Elizabeth pulled out a small recording device. He thinks I'm here to convince you to back off, to offer a deal where he drops the charges against Clara if you stop the financial investigation. But while he was talking in the car, I was recording. She pressed play. Bartholomew's voice filled my office, tinny but clear. Elizabeth, you need to convince Vander Zee that Clara is unstable, that she's lying about the abuse. If he backs off, I'll forgive your loan and give you another $200,000. But if this goes to trial and I lose, I'll bury you both. I'll destroy Clara's reputation so thoroughly she'll never recover. I'll make sure everyone knows about her affair, about the paternity questions. I'll turn her into a cautionary tale. There was more. Bartholomew detailing his plan to manipulate evidence, to bribe witnesses, to use his connections to ensure the jury would doubt Clara's credibility. It was devastating. It was exactly what I needed. He confessed to everything in your car, I said slowly, knowing you were Clara's mother, thinking you were completely on his side. He's arrogant. He thinks everyone can be bought. Elizabeth looked at me. Can I see my daughter, please? I need to apologize, to tell her I choose her. I thought about Clara in that hospital bed, broken and healing, needing her mother in ways she probably couldn't articulate. "Yes," I said. "But Mrs. Hartley? If you hurt her again, if you waver in your support, if you show even a hint of putting money before her safety, I will destroy you with the same thoroughness I'm destroying Bartholomew. Are we clear?" "Crystal clear." She stood. "Thank you, Mr. Van der Zee, for giving me the chance to be a better mother than I've been." After she left for the hospital, Catherine looked at me with something like admiration. "You've got him," she said. "That recording is admissible. Proves intent to manipulate the case. Combined with the financial crimes, the assault charges, the witness testimony, he's going to prison for a long time." "Good," I said. "Now let's make sure of it." But even as I said it, I felt unease creeping up my spine, because Bartholomew was still downstairs, still free, still dangerous, and desperate men did desperate things. I just didn't know yet how desperate he was about to become. The call came at 11 p.m. I was reviewing documents in my home office when Marcus burst through the door, his face ashen. "Bartholomew just tried to break into the hospital," he said. Security stopped him at Clara's floor. He had a syringe filled with something the police are testing now. My blood turned to ice. "Where is he?" "In custody." "But Elias, there's more." Marcus pulled up security footage on his tablet. "We traced his movements after he left your building. He went to a pharmacy, a veterinary clinic, and met with someone in a parking garage. The footage showed Bartholomew talking to a man in scrubs, exchanging money for a small package." "What's in the package?" I demanded. According to the veterinary clinic's records, which we accessed through less than legal means, he purchased enough sedative to kill someone Clara's size. He was going to murder her and make it look like a medical complication. I was already moving, grabbing my keys, my phone. "I'm going to the hospital. Double security on her room. No one gets in except medical staff we've personally vetted." I arrived at the hospital to find police swarming Clara's floor. She sat in her bed, pale and shaking, while a detective took her statement. When she saw me, she broke down crying. I held her, feeling her trembling against my chest, and made a decision. "We're ending this," I told Marcus over her head. "No more waiting for trials. No more legal maneuvering. I want every piece of evidence we have delivered to the DA tomorrow morning. I want federal charges filed for attempted murder. I want him in prison where he can't hurt her." "There's something else," Marcus said quietly. "The man Bartholomew met in the parking garage? We ID'd him. He's a hitman. Has 3 prior arrests for assault and 1 suspected murder." The revelation hit like a physical blow. Bartholomew hadn't just tried to kill Clara himself. He'd hired someone to do it if the first attempt failed. "How much did he pay?" I asked, my voice deadly calm. 50,000. Half up front. I looked at Marcus, at Catherine who'd arrived minutes behind me, at the police detective who was listening to every word. "I want witness protection for Clara," I said. "Immediate relocation to a secure location. And I want Bartholomew's bail revoked. Tonight. He just proved he's an active threat." The detective nodded. "We have enough for attempted murder charges. Judge Chun has already signed the warrant. He's going back to jail, and this time there's no bail." I should have felt relief. Victory. Instead, I felt cold rage that Bartholomew had gotten close enough to try. That I'd almost lost her. Again. I had exactly 3 minutes to decide between Clara's life and Bartholomew's destruction. Then I realized I didn't have to choose. I called Marcus, the hitman watching Clara's window. "You have his position." Tracked him through thermal imaging the moment Bartholomew called. "He's in the building across the street, 3rd floor, room 304. Former office building, mostly abandoned." "How fast can you get a team there?" "We're already in position, waiting for your order." I allowed myself one breath of relief. "Take him alive. I want him talking within the hour." "On it." I hung up and immediately called Catherine. "The recording Elizabeth made. It's inadmissible in criminal court. But what about civil court?" "Civil court has different evidentiary standards. It could potentially be used in a lawsuit, but..." I heard the moment understanding clicked. "You're going to sue him. I'm going to destroy him financially while the criminal case proceeds. File a civil suit on Clara's behalf for assault, battery, emotional distress, and theft of her trust fund. Use the recording to establish pattern of behavior. Even if he's acquitted criminally, we can bankrupt him in civil court." Brilliant. "But Elias, the hitman, is still being apprehended as we speak. I need you to focus on the lawsuit. File it today." before Bartholomew knows his leverage is gone. Next call was to my media contact at the Palm Beach Post. Jennifer, I have a story for you. Exclusive. Bartholomew Thorne hired a hitman to murder his pregnant wife. I have evidence, witnesses, and the hitman's location. How fast can you run it? Online in 30 minutes. Print tomorrow morning. Jennifer's voice was sharp with interest. You're going nuclear. I'm going biblical. And Jennifer, when this story runs, Bartholomew's reputation won't just be damaged. It'll be obliterated. I watched through the security feed as Marcus's team breached room 304. The hitman never had a chance. Within 90 seconds, he was on the ground, hands zip-tied behind his back, being read his rights. My phone rang. Bartholomew, I know what you're thinking, he said. But if you've touched my associate, if you've interfered with, your associate is currently in federal custody. I interrupted. Charged with conspiracy to commit murder, stalking, and weapons violations. He's already talking, by the way. Gave you up in exchange for a plea deal. Detailed everything. The payment, the plan, the instructions you gave him. Silence on the other end. Here's what's going to happen, Bartholomew. I continued, my voice cold as winter. In 20 minutes, every major news outlet in Florida is going to run a story about how you hired a hitman to murder your pregnant wife. Your face will be plastered across headlines with the word, attempted murderer, attached to it. Every business relationship you have will evaporate. Every friend will distance themselves. Every door will close. You can't prove. The hitman is proving it right now. In detail. With receipts. With text messages from your burner phone that you thought were untraceable. I allowed myself a cold smile. You've been so focused on threatening Clara that you forgot to cover your own tracks. I'll fight this. You'll lose. Criminal charges. Civil lawsuit. Federal investigation into your financial crimes. I'm coming at you from every direction, and you don't have the resources to fight back. I paused. You should have taken the plea deal when you had the chance. Should have accepted that you lost. Instead, you tried to murder the woman you claimed to love. And that was your fatal mistake. Vander Z, if you think. I hung up. Then I called Clara. She answered on the first ring, her voice shaky. Elias? What's happening? Security just evacuated my room and, you're safe. The threat has been neutralized. Bartholomew hired someone to hurt you, but we caught him. You're safe now. I heard her breath hitch, heard the tears she was trying to hold back. It's really over? She whispered. Not quite, but we're winning. And, Clara? I gentled my voice. I'm coming to get you. The doctors are discharging you tonight. I'm bringing you somewhere Bartholomew will never find you. Somewhere you can heal without fear. Where? My family's estate in the Hamptons. Completely off-grid. Security measures that would make the Secret Service jealous. And most importantly, somewhere with enough distance that you can breathe again. Elias, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. And this time, I'm asking you to trust me. To let me protect you the way I should have 5 years ago. The way I should have the moment I realized what Bartholomew was. She was quiet for a long moment. Then softly, okay, yes, get me out of here. 30 minutes later, the story broke. Millionaire Bartholomew Thorne arrested for conspiracy to commit murder screamed across every news site. The article detailed everything. The hitman, the surveillance footage, the attempted break-in at the hospital with the lethal syringe, the financial crimes, the pattern of abuse. My phone exploded with calls from board members of organizations where Bartholomew held positions. All of them asking the same question. How fast could they remove him? Immediately, I told each of them. And I'd suggest public statements distancing yourselves. This story isn't going away. By midnight, Bartholomew had been fired from 3 boards, dropped by 2 major clients, and expelled from the country club where he'd assaulted Clara. His empire was crumbling in real time. Catherine called with an update. The civil suit has been filed. We're asking for $15 million in damages. And Elias? Elizabeth Hartley wants to testify. She's willing to detail every instance of abuse she witnessed. Every time Bartholomew manipulated her. Everything. Use her testimony. Make it count. At 2 a.m., I picked Clara up from the hospital's secure exit. She looked fragile in jeans and a sweater, her hand protectively on her belly, her eyes hollow from stress and fear. But when she saw me, relief flooded her features. Ready to disappear for a while? I asked, taking her bag. More than ready. We drove through the night, leaving Palm Beach behind, heading north toward the Hamptons estate I'd inherited from my grandmother. Clara slept in the passenger seat, her hand in mine, trusting me to keep her safe. And for the first time in days, I felt like we were going to win this. Bartholomew had made his fatal error. He'd escalated from assault to attempted murder, and in doing so, had given us everything we needed to destroy him completely. The darkest hour had passed. Now came the reckoning, and I was going to make absolutely certain Bartholomew Thorne paid for every moment of pain he'd inflicted. Not with my fists, with the full force of the law, public opinion, and economic warfare. The turning point had arrived, and we were finally moving toward victory. The wheels of justice turned faster than I'd anticipated. Within 2 weeks, the evidence against Bartholomew became so overwhelming that even his expensive attorneys advised him to take a plea deal. I sat in the courtroom watching him stand before Judge Chun, his expensive suit hanging looser on a frame that had lost weight, his face haggard from nights in jail where bail had been permanently denied. "Mr. Thorne," Judge Chun said, her voice carrying through the silent courtroom, "you're pleading guilty to aggravated assault, conspiracy to commit murder, embezzlement, and fraud. Do you understand that these charges carry a sentence of 15 to 25 years in state prison?" "Yes, Your Honor." Bartholomew's voice was barely audible. "And you're entering this plea of your own free will, understanding that you're waiving your right to trial?" "Yes." I watched the man who'd terrorized Clara for 2 years accept responsibility for his crimes, and felt something settle in my chest. Not satisfaction exactly, more like the quiet relief of watching a threat finally neutralized. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. In the meantime, the civil lawsuit moved forward like a freight train. Catherine presented evidence that detailed every instance of abuse, every dollar Bartholomew had stolen from Clara's trust fund, every manipulation and lie. Elizabeth Hartley testified for 6 hours, breaking down as she described watching her daughter's spirit slowly crushed under Bartholomew's control. The medical testimony from Dr. Bennett was devastating. Photographs of Clara's injuries projected on screens for the jury to see. Documentation of 3 separate emergency room visits over 2 years that Clara had hidden from everyone. Mrs. Thorne told staff she'd fallen, Dr. Bennett testified, but the injuries were inconsistent with falls. They were consistent with repeated physical assault. The defense tried to argue that Clara had exaggerated, that the marriage had been troubled but not abusive, that she was motivated by greed now that Bartholomew's assets were being liquidated. Then we played the recording. Even though it couldn't be used in criminal court, civil court had different standards. The jury heard Bartholomew's voice detailing his plan to destroy Clara's reputation, to manipulate evidence, to ensure she never recovered from his calculated cruelty. The jury deliberated for 90 minutes. They awarded Clara $18 million in damages, far more than Bartholomew actually had, which meant he'd be paying it for the rest of his life. Every asset he owned was seized: the house, the cars, the business that turned out to be worth nothing once the debts were revealed. Everything liquidated to pay Clara's settlement. But the most satisfying moment came during the sentencing hearing. Judge Chun looked at Bartholomew with open disgust. "In my 30 years on the bench, I've seen many cases of domestic violence, but rarely have I seen someone as calculating, as cruel, as willing to destroy another human being as you've proven yourself to be." She sentenced him to 23 years in state prison. No parole eligibility for 18 years. Bartholomew would be 61 when he got out, if he survived that long. As they led him away in shackles, he looked at me one final time. I saw hatred there, blame, the inability to accept responsibility that had defined his entire pathetic life. I looked back with nothing. No triumph, no anger, just the cool indifference of someone who'd eliminated a problem. He was nothing to me now, nothing to Clara. Just a cautionary tale about what happened when you confused control with love. The Hamptons estate became our sanctuary. Clara had been living there for 2 months, healing slowly but steadily. Her pregnancy progressed normally despite the trauma. The baby was healthy, growing, giving Clara a reason to focus on the future instead of dwelling on the past. I'd been commuting between Palm Beach and the Hamptons, managing my business remotely, spending every weekend with Clara, watching her slowly transform from the frightened woman in the hospital bed to someone stronger, more confident, reclaiming pieces of herself that Bartholomew had tried to destroy. We talked, hours and hours of conversations about everything and nothing, about our past, our mistakes, our hopes for the future. about what we wanted from each other and what we were afraid to want. "I'm falling in love with you again," she told me one evening as we walked along the beach behind the estate. She was 5 months pregnant now, showing beautifully, glowing with health. Or maybe I never stopped. I don't know anymore. "You don't have to know," I said, taking her hand. "We have time to figure it out." "Do we though?" She stopped walking, turned to face me. "In 4 months, I'm going to have a baby that might be Bartholomew's. How can we build a relationship with that question hanging over us? The same way we'd build it without that question. One day at a time, with honesty and patience and commitment." I cupped her face gently. "Clara, I don't care whose DNA that baby has. If you let me, I'll love that child as mine. I'll be the father they deserve, the partner you deserve. Not because I'm trying to redeem myself or play hero, but because I love you. Both of you." She kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. "I want that," she whispered against my lips. "I want us. I want the future we should have had 5 years ago. I want to believe in happy endings again. Then let's build one. Together." The baby came early on a September morning, 6 weeks before the due date. I was in a meeting in Manhattan when Clara called, her voice tight with pain. "Elias, it's time. The contractions are," she gasped. "They're close. 3 minutes apart." I was in my car before she'd finished the sentence. "I'm 40 minutes away. The medical team is there. They know what to do. I'm coming, Clara. I'm coming." I made it to the Hamptons in 32 minutes, breaking every speed limit, my heart hammering against my ribs. Clara was in labor for 6 hours. I stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand, breathing with her, watching her fight to bring this baby safely into the world. When the cry finally came, piercing and perfect, I felt tears streaming down my face. "It's a girl," the doctor announced, placing the tiny, squirming baby on Clara's chest. "Small but healthy, good lungs, all 10 fingers and toes." Clara sobbed, holding her daughter, looking at the tiny face with such love it hurt to witness. "She's perfect," Clara whispered. "She's absolutely perfect." I looked at the baby, pink and wrinkled and beautiful, and felt something shift fundamentally in my chest. Love, instant and overwhelming, for this tiny human who might or might not share my DNA but who I would protect with my life. "What's her name?" I asked softly. Clara looked at me, tears streaming down her face. "Grace. Grace Elizabeth. After my grandmother who left me the trust fund. And my mother who finally chose me." "Grace," I repeated, touching one tiny fist with my finger. "It's perfect." The paternity test results came back 3 weeks later. I held the envelope in my hands, unopened, while Clara nursed Grace in the nursery I'd had built in the Hamptons estate. "Do you want to know?" I asked her. Clara looked at Grace, at the baby who had her nose and her dark hair and her stubborn chin. "Part of me does. Part of me is terrified. Whatever the result, it doesn't change anything for me," I told her. "I love her. I love you. This is our family if you want it to be." "Open it," Clara said quietly. "I need to know." I opened the envelope, read the results, and felt relief flood through me. "She's mine," I said, my voice breaking. "Grace is mine." Clara started crying. "Thank God. Thank God she's yours and not his. Thank God she'll never have any connection to that monster." I sat beside them, wrapped my arms around both of them, and let myself feel the full weight of what we'd been given. A second chance. Family. A future. Free from Bartholomew's poison. Grace made a small sound, her tiny hand gripping my finger with surprising strength. "Hello, Grace," I whispered. "I'm your father, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you know you're loved, valued, and safe. I promise you'll never know fear the way your mother did. You'll grow up knowing what healthy love looks like." Clara rested her head on my shoulder, exhausted but happy. "Thank you," she said softly, "for fighting for us, for protecting us, for being everything he wasn't. Thank you for trusting me again, for giving us another chance." 6 months later, I stood on the beach behind the Hamptons estate, watching the sun set over the Atlantic, Grace sleeping in my arms. Bartholomew Thorne was in a maximum security prison 3 states away, serving his sentence, forgotten by everyone except the lawyers still processing the asset liquidation. Clara was inside the house, laughing on the phone with her mother about Grace's latest milestone. My business was thriving. The Van der Zee Foundation had just funded 3 new domestic violence shelters in Florida. Catherine had been promoted to head of our legal division. Marcus had gotten married. Life was moving forward. And I was standing here with my daughter, in front of the home I shared with the woman I loved, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. "Your mother is inside planning our wedding," I told Grace, who yawned and snuggled closer. She finally said yes after I asked her for the 100th time. "We're getting married next spring in the garden she's been planting. You'll be the flower girl, though you'll probably just sleep through it." Grace made a small sound that might have been agreement. "I want you to know something," I continued, speaking to my daughter even though she was too young to understand. "Your father made a lot of mistakes before you were born. Wasted time. Failed people who mattered. But you and your mother gave me the chance to be better. To be the man I should have been all along." Clara appeared on the deck, backlit by the house lights, beautiful and whole and everything I'd ever wanted. "Are you giving her another one of your speeches?" she called, smiling. "Just explaining the universe to her. Standard father-daughter talk." "Well, bring my daughter inside. It's getting cold, and she needs to eat. Our daughter, our family, our future." I walked toward the house, toward Clara, toward the life we'd built from the ashes of everything Bartholomew had tried to destroy. And I knew with absolute certainty that we'd won. Not because Bartholomew was in prison, but because we'd survived, healed, and found our way back to love. Justice had been served, and we were finally free. 2 years later, I stood in the garden Clara had planted, watching her dance with Grace at our daughter's 2nd birthday party. Elizabeth was there, having rebuilt her relationship with Clara through consistent presence and genuine remorse. She was a devoted grandmother now, making up for lost time. Marcus and his wife had just announced they were expecting. Catherine had won another major case protecting abuse survivors. The Rebecca Morrison Center that Clara now directed had helped over 500 women escape dangerous situations. And Bartholomew? He existed only as a cautionary tale. A man who'd confused control with love and lost everything because of it. Clara caught my eye across the lawn, smiled with the warmth that still made my heart skip, and mouthed, "I love you." I'd finally learned what my mother tried to teach me before she died. That love isn't about grand gestures or wealth or power. It's about showing up every single day. Protecting without possessing. Supporting without controlling. Grace squealed with laughter, running toward me on unsteady legs, and I caught her, lifting her high. "Again, Daddy. Again." I'd spent years building an empire, but this Clara, Grace, the family we'd fought for, this was my greatest achievement. Not because I'd destroyed a bad man, but because I'd finally become a good one. And that made all the difference. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If this story moved you, reminded you that abuse is never acceptable, or showed you that healing is possible, please leave a comment below. Share which moment resonated most with you. Remember, if you or someone you love is experiencing abuse, help is available. You deserve safety. You deserve love that protects instead of harms. If you haven't subscribed, please do, because I have many more stories about justice, healing, and love that rebuilds instead of destroys. You are stronger than you know. Your story matters, and you deserve a happy ending. Until next time, stay safe, stay strong, and never forget your worth. See you in the next story.